Hey guys, Sean here, quick update. So Russia's back on the brink of a debt default after America decided to fully block the access to US dollars through US banks. We already know that over 630 billion of Russia's FX reserves were frozen and this final lifeline has been shut. Now this comes on the back of Russia demanding rubles as payment for gas, and it's America's strategy to bleed them dry of their dollars. Now this move pushes Russia to the brink and really throws a wrench into their plans of making the ruble a currency strong enough to challenge the dollar. The US is now using a financial default as a weapon to win this financial war. Russia now has to eat into their remaining dollar reserves or find new dollars to pay back their creditors or risk a default. If this was a game of chess, the Russians has just been checked. So what we didn't know is Russia actually had over $600 million or reserves held at US banks they could tap into. But this has been shut and now Russia has to choose. Do they eat into their dollar reserves held back home or spend their new revenue making it harder to fund their war? Or risk a default that will just shatter their reputation? Now the immediate effects are quite obvious. Countries will start to lose confidence in lending Russia money and doing business in the country. It's really the same analogy as you lending someone money and they don't pay you back. You really wouldn't care about the reason, right? You just want your money back. And secondly, creditors could seize Russia's assets overseas. This has been done before, so it's not entirely impossible. Argentina defaulted on their debt of $93 billion back in 2002, and this triggered multiple creditors that were affected to the point of even seizing their physical assets, such as a Navy ship. Now, this could happen to Russia, who definitely has energy assets and infrastructure in Europe. And just recently, Germany took control of Gazprom Germania, a subsidiary in their country, to really secure the country's energy supply. So anything could happen, especially when it was Russia who started this war. We already know that Russia has ambitions to make their currency stronger and even challenge the US dollar. There is a reason why they are demanding rubles for their gas and why Russia has been and is still aggressively buying gold today. Dmitry Peskov, Russia's spokesman, said to our faces 3 things about the ruble for gas scheme that we really need to pay attention to. Firstly, it is the prototype of the system. Secondly, he has no doubt it will be extended to new groups of goods. And thirdly, the system will be different from the Bretton Woods system. Now, this is incredibly alarming, especially if you're in the West, because it all but confirms Russia's ambition. Now, we are talking about pricing their other commodities such as oil, wheat, and metals in rubles, as well as potentially backing up the ruble with gold, or at least making the ruble stronger with some other means so that countries can trust and transact with it. Now, the big issue with a default is that it makes executing this plan even more difficult, right? In the short term, Russia won't be able to use their dollar reserves to really strengthen the ruble, and if a default happens, it will drain away trust in the currency. We are talking about less investment flowing in, and Russia could really face a crisis where they just can't grow and develop their country further. So the big question right now is if Russia can pay back using rubles. Technically, they can force payments in rubles, but whether the US bank will process it or creditors accepting it is really another thing, right? Even if they get the rubles, right now many countries aren't trading with Russia thanks to the sanctions. So is it all over for Russia? I think the situation does look bleak for Putin and his gang, because if they are really pushing towards a world reserve currency, they cannot afford to lose the world's financial trust. However, because they now need dollars to settle the contracts, they could double down on the gas for ruble scheme. We have to remember that the scheme works where buyers will need to deposit their US dollars or euros in Russian banks on Russian soil before the conversion to rubles can happen. So it will help them raise some US dollars. Or it could have the opposite effect and really force Russia to slowly disengage from the war to simply save money, right? We really won't know for sure how this will play out, but this is a big hurdle that came out of left field again for Russia. But I think for us, this is yet another lesson in counterparty risk. Having all your assets elsewhere in a single place is risky. It's no different than having all your money locked up in the stock market and having it crash. Or let's say you were invested in Russian bonds for some reason, now you're in big trouble. And this brings me to the most important point. We all normally consider bonds as traditionally safe. Granted, Russian bonds aren't the same thing as US treasuries, but we need to understand that no paper asset is immune to a default. And besides, the interest paid on sovereign debt today is around 2 to 3%. how is that really going to fight an inflation rate of 7.9%, right? You are still in negative real rates territory and nothing is 100% safe there. Sure, Russian debt today can pay over 15% in yield, but who in the right mind will really buy them now? And this is why I really see value in something as simple as gold and silver, right? Yes, it's ancient, but there's no counterparty risk so long as I hold it physically. Right now, I really believe that the term counterparty risk is burned into the minds of many investors and central bankers, and I won't be surprised if many start diversifying into physical gold. During this currency war, we won't know who will come out on top. Russia could suddenly push towards a commodity or gold-backed currency, while the United States is going to try to block them at every turn. But I do know that inflation is astoundingly high and it could get worse. The stock market is looking very shaky and who knows how this Russian debt default will affect it. Many banks and countries have outstanding debt from Russia, and granted they are just 10 or 20 billion dollars individually, but God knows what black swan event could be triggered. Even private funds like PIMCO have over $1 billion of exposure to Russia debt. Will there be another bailout or money printing if institutions fail as a result of this? We won't know for sure, but that's why I'm defaulting to something as simple since the ancient days of Rome, gold and silver, because either way this plays out, my money will be protected. Right now, it's both probable that Russia defaults or they somehow make the bond payments. However, it's my fear that this will just harden their resolve to push towards a gas for Ruble's future, as they probably have nothing else left to lose. Now, if Russia does default, this will likely cause a short-term rise in the dollar, as it will be seen as more of a safe haven asset, as crazy as it sounds. But I'm going to overlook the noise and just focus on reality. Inflation is still high, a lot of money has been printed, and the world is still in chaos. And that's why I hold gold and silver. So let me know what you think. Will Russia default or find a way to raise more dollars? Will Putin really push towards a gold-backed ruble? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more gold, silver, and finance videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.